3.
You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Imagine a life without hope. You cannot work, or go to school, or run, or play, or dance, or even walk. The World Health Organization estimates that nearly 30 million amputees in developing countries face these challenges every single day. There is little to no access to prosthetic care in these regions. And since the vast majority of these amputees live on just a few dollars a day, affording a prosthesis is simply unattainable. Now, imagine a solution that provides access to affordable prosthetic care. Our highly skilled prosthetists have years of experience working in the developing world, cutting-edge knowledge in prosthetic design, innovative fabrication techniques, plus advanced 3D printing experience to combine and create a proven and effective low-cost prosthetic system. By sharing what they know, they can train other organizations all around the world to replicate the process. This is the LifeNabled Solution. Enable prosthetic innovation. Train others. Serve the world. Together, with your help, hope begins.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, this is Mike Balzer. In some parts of the world, it's actually in the evening already. And we have a guest today, Brent Wright, who is the president of LifeNabled Solutions. And we're going to talk to him because one of the things he does, which if you remember some time ago when I actually did a lot of 3D printing, was orthotics. And I actually developed an app for a company. Didn't really go anywhere, but there were some people that were interested in the structure sensor and its use, and we're going to talk to what he's done with all that in a little bit. So before we get started, though, I want to talk about something that you may have seen in the news, and that's about the protesters out at Microsoft who are protesting about them using the HoloLens or selling or having a $400 million contract with the U.S. Army, and a number of them opposed that and kind of protested it. And you know that I've kind of been more of an advocate of not using the military, as you know, in 3D or virtual reality or in gaming. I feel that some areas should be kind of hands off. But in this particular case, Microsoft has been providing Windows software and licenses for decades now to the Defense Department. So I'm pretty sure that the people, when they signed up, were aware of this. So I don't really understand that. I do, if you remember, I also talked about Magic Leap also signing up for this bid for the using augmented reality or mixed reality systems. And my point on either of these is that, you know, at least the difference is Magic Leap or Microsoft has never identified they will not work with the Defense Department, whereas Magic Leap tried to show that they were kind of a touchy-feely, more creative, and so I think people were a little more concerned with Magic Leap jumping in basically to grab money, where we know that Microsoft, that's their business, has been money for many years. There's also been a few others. As you probably remember, there was a game called U.S. Army that came out, gosh, over a decade ago, if I remember, using the Unreal Engine. There I had some problems because it was a little misleading. You provided a game, and that game obviously was for entertainment, but also to kind of showcase the Army. And, you know, they'll say that it didn't contribute to the number of people who signed up, but having actually done an interview with a number of them, since my wife and I were doing basically about a 6-hour I called it a kind of a virtual documentary about video gaming addiction, and we talked about gaming used in the military, and well as obviously some other areas. But that came up, and we kind of did some interviews with some people, and it really encouraged their use in it. Plus, I did notice that some people who had come back had actually felt that they were misled in a lot of ways. So as a recruiting tool, I don't think that's where we need to go with it. Now, we've also talked about using virtual reality in training. And again, for the Defense Department, I don't see an issue with that. But for entertainment, we're using realistic guns and rifles and so forth. I do think that that shouldn't be a direction we go, especially from an entertainment standpoint. Now, I know there are many people who enjoy firing rifles and handguns and so forth and use it as a hobby. And I would say that most of you are responsible. But a lot of this is kind of geared towards younger people, and I think we just need to be more responsible. So that's just my rant and rave on it, and maybe we'll talk to Brent in a little bit on his opinion of it. I did notice that one of his videos showed how there's a gun seller in North Carolina who's working with the disabled, and so maybe he can give us a little bit more of an opinion on that. But like I said, as long as people are responsible and not really trying to push it to people who aren't responsible. And I think younger people, teenagers and younger, are not responsible. And I think we need to really look at it. It's just like cigarettes and I guess this vaping thing that's going on. Children, even teenagers, don't really know the difference of what's good for them. And I think it's our job as adults, and me being an older adult, to make sure that message is put out there. But as far as the Microsoft employees, I don't know the whole story behind it. And as you can see behind me, we can kind of go through it. There have been a number of articles. This is NPR. But the good thing is they are listening to them, and I guess that's all we can do. I don't know if it'll make a big difference, but I guess the major point they had is that I guess in the description it said how it's going to help them kill the enemy. And yeah, I guess there should be concern there, but really a lot of this stuff is to help and aid and identify and provide more management of your troops while out on battle. And so, I mean, all of that I think is a good thing. We surely don't want our people to die. And clearly, if we're not using it, the enemy will be. So that's always going to be an issue too. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into our interview today. And I asked Brent to unmute so he can mute so he can unmute now. So Brent, one of your questions is who you are. So why don't you kind of give us a little bit of, who you are, what you're doing, and clearly, how did we hook up? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Michael. My name's Brent Wright. I'm a prosthetist and orthotist, which means that I'm a leg maker and I'm a brace maker in North Carolina. My wife and I started a nonprofit organization. 2015 was the official start date of the organization, but we've been serving the northern part of Guatemala since 2006. And really, I saw that there was such a need for prosthetics, specifically in Guatemala, but also the rest of the world. And I knew that there really weren't enough of people like me, a prosthetist, all over the world. There are some countries that may have one or two people that actually make limbs. And so I was just looking at opportunities for scaling technology, and really 3D printing was a great option, but really until the last probably year, 18 months, the materials just were not there yet. But that's where I'm really excited. I believe that a lot of the materials now are getting very close, specifically in the FDM world. So that's where we're at now, is exploring some of that, and we've really gone into creating arms as really a great way to leverage 3D printing. Our material costs for printing an arm is roughly about $4, whereas traditional fabrication, we're looking at somewhere between $800 and $1,200. So just that range or that spread really makes 3D printing, specifically arms, very affordable and very practical for what we do. And it's something that we're really excited about doing.
Yeah, and as you can see, I've got a video running in the background here. I'm assuming you're down in Guatemala back in 2013, and you know, as you were talking about, you were able to make these a lot cheaper than what you could normally buy them on the market. So here I don't see any 3D fabricators per se. So can you kind of give us some ideas of what you're doing here? How did you actually create these, and what is the purpose of them?
Yeah, so traditional fabrication starts with a plaster Paris mold, like what you're seeing here, and then we use tools to modify those molds, and then we vacuum form. At this time, we were using copolymer plastic over top of those molds. And while that's a very efficient way to make things, it's super labor intensive. Oh man, this brings back a lot of memories. This girl is so much older now. She had cancer, and she's doing, this was her first time wearing a prosthesis and then walking independently. It's amazing. Wow. Thanks for bringing that up. That's awesome.
Well, I can
So
imagine how heartfelt it was to actually be a part of this, and yeah, and clearly, I'm assuming the young girl lost her legs as well as this boy, and these look fairly high tech. And again, you said you keep the price down. So what allows you to do this, to create? It appears what, aluminum?
yeah. Yeah, so what happened, and there was a, do you remember when the earthquake was in Haiti? Was it
Yes.
2011,
Hmm.
2010, somewhere in there? So when that happened, all of the donated prosthetic componentry for the rest of the world really dried up. Everything went to Haiti. And so, and not that that was a bad thing, but it was something that really made us think about what we were doing, because we weren't able to get donations anymore. So what we ended up doing is started to try to partner with other vendors that made prosthetic devices and say, hey, we're not looking for donations, but give us a really good deal on pieces and parts and we'll buy them from you. And it just became a win-win for a lot of the vendors and for us, because we then were able to buy these materials just essentially a little bit above their cost. They were able to cover their costs, and then we've got people walking. So for a below the knee prosthesis, which means that their amputation, they actually have their knee, or their and so it's below their knee, we can make a prosthesis for around $150, maybe a little bit less now, and that's all new parts, no donated parts. And then for an above the knee prosthesis, we do it for about $250 to $300, again, all new parts. And what's neat about buying your stuff is that the supply then becomes infinite rather than a finite donated part request. And so we've just really started building off that and come up with a good system. And then after we started buying our components, what we realized is that we're actually more efficient in fabricating these devices because they're more standardized, and because everything's new, we're not repairing it. And so we actually were able to double our output essentially, because we were using all new parts. So it was just I mean, the Haiti thing was terrible, but it really forced us to look at other options to continue taking care of the people that we serve.
Now, you're probably familiar with eNabled, correct? Gosh, I can't even remember the guy that started that, but I've had an opportunity to interview him many years ago. And I see this more of a what do you want to call it, continuation, or actually a more advancement. Clearly, your prosthetics are a little more advanced, but the main thing is that they actually 3D fabricated an arm. Do you use some of those plans as well, or do you have your own plans from that perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one of the things that I love to share. The Enable hands were developed by multiple engineers and such, but
Correct.
not with a lot of insight from prosthetists like
Mm.
us. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. We as prosthetists are not super. We don't like change a lot, and so the Enable kind of movement really pushed us and caused a divide. Really, it's us versus the engineers. We didn't want engineers taking our jobs, and
Hmm.
engineers are like, no, 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 that's not what we want. We want to help you.
Mm.
And we just kind of put everybody at arm's length, like, we don't need your help, or we're not going to give insight into that. And so the what's really exciting is there are some, from that kind of movement, there are some people that have taken that to a next level, and one group is the Victoria Hand Project out of Canada, and they have created a really great system, arm system that is super durable, moves very well, and is cost effective. And yeah, and so they just do a real nice job with that. And so we've started looking into using them. They've sent me a couple samples, and I'm actually going to be delivering a few of their hands within the next at the next clinic in August. But very, very excited about that.
Oh, that's good.
So some of the principles are still the same, but what's neat about the Victoria Hand Project is they really reached out to prosthetists and said, "Hey, we're engineers. We're here to help. We want to do something with you." And then the prosthetists really stepped up and said, "We really like this idea. Let's do this." And then it started kind of a professional relationship, to where now the end user, the patients, are going to benefit from something that's very durable. The issue with the Enable hands were I mean, they were neat, but they just weren't, and they still are not very, very durable. So they
Mm.
will break, like, even for simple tasks like reaching back. If you're going to sit on a chair and you go for the arm of the chair, you don't want to do that with any of their hands, because they will break as you put weight on them.
Now, is that because the material they're using, or the fact is that they did not make certain components sturdy enough, or, as you're probably aware of, you being a designer of this, you have stress points, and if you don't reinforce them correctly. So I'm assuming, as you said, the engineers did not get the proper feedback, so they made something that looked good, but it wasn't very practical. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's right. Yeah. And there's specific motions in how to activate the hand. And so the enabled hand used a lot of this motion, so
Mm.
the elbow and forearm. And uh, that's really not the most natural way to close a hand. And but that would have been an easy a question to ask a prosthetist. Hey, what do you think about this? And we would have just been
Hmm.
like, you know what, that's probably not the right way to go. Let's go this way. And so that's the story about Enable. But a lot of that was all foundational stuff. I mean, 3D printing has changed so much over the last. It's moving so fast, changed
It
so
is.
much over the last few years. It definitely laid a good foundation for the future, for
Well, let's
sure.
talk about that a little bit. So, as you know, I got started this, gosh, 2013, and we have seen a lot of changes, a lot of new printers. So I'm assuming that now that you've embraced that, what are the 3D printers you're using and the materials? So we can start with the printers first.
Okay. Yeah, so as far as printers go, I started off with some of the Lulz bots. So I actually had or I still have a TAS 5, TAS
Mm.
6, two TAS minis. And then I got there's a small company out of Pennsylvania that is called Filament Innovations.
Hmm.
And We are now up to 6 of his machines. So needless to say, I've become fans. He's just done a good job as far as putting together components that are high quality at a reasonable cost, and his customer service is second to none. In fact, I would call him from Guatemala that was the other part, is that he made me a suitcase printer that I could take to Guatemala.
Oh.
And so we're on version 3 of that, this last one. And we're going to change it up.
Now, this was in 2013, correct?
2000. So the first time I took a printer was 2016 was the lull spot. Yeah. We weren't doing any, I just wasn't
Now, that was the
comfortable.
low spot MIDI that you took?
No, I took the Taz 6.
Okay. Wow.
At that time. And it fit right in. Actually, I put it in 2 different suitcases, but I used my 50 pounds, that's for sure, on both suitcases. But yeah, Filament Innovations has been great. I have a black belt 3D printer as well, and they have been great. Printing on an angle definitely allows you to do some shapes that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do, or you'd have a lot of supports doing. So I really like that printer.
Now, that's the black belt, right? That has
Correct.
the pivoting head, so that as you mentioned, you don't need the support structure because it can actually rotate the head. Is that correct, if I remember correctly?
So it doesn't rotate the head, but the gantry is on an angle.
Oh, that's right.
So and then when you put stuff on an angle, it's got a conveyor belt, so you can go infinity as far as your length. But it is a great printer. In fact, a quick story on that printer is the hospital that we go to had 50 hospital beds, and because they're in the jungle of Guatemala, there's these little rubber bushings that would just wear out and just crumble, and so the beds would stop articulating. And so these pieces are either no longer available, or they're up to like $50 a piece, and they're just small, 1/2 inch thick, maybe 2.5 inches in diameter, have 6 or 8 holes. So I reverse engineered them and let my black belt print for 3 days, and I printed them so they could switch all their pieces and parts out, and now they have articulating beds, and I was out $50 in material, and they saved $7,500. So just really neat, because it's a production machine. So I just put a box at the end, and it just printed, and then 4 days later I had a box full of these little pieces that I was able to take down. So that's one of the neat things about the black belt.
Now, all these are FDM printers. Do you use any SLL or SLS type printing as well?
That is a great question. So because of the really before the multi-jet fusion and even the EOS SLS printer, you're really limited by some of the build volumes. So some of the devices that we make are 15, 18 inches tall, and some of our North Carolina patients that enjoyed fried chicken, and we get some big ones down here. So some of the circumferences are 50 centimeters or more. So the build volumes just weren't right. But over, let's see, HP released their multi-jet fusion about a year and a half ago. I have really been working hard with that, and I mean, it has blown my mind and blown my patients' minds with some of this. Now, I can't afford $500,000 and put it in.
So do you own this?
My wife would kill me for that, but I've actually partnered with, partner is loose, more of a handshake agreement to work together with Aerosport Modeling and Design out of Ohio. And we do a lot of work with them. So we're starting to make braces. We're doing prostheses, and actually I believe it to be the first in the world Symes prosthesis, which means a real long prosthesis. Some of the wall thicknesses were 1.75 millimeters, and then I reinforced it, and I actually put T-nuts in the bottom of it to connect the foot.
Hmm.
to it. And the patient, she was 16. It was the first time that she ever ran in 16 years. And
Wow.
it was emotional time for me, emotional time for her. And feather light, the whole thing weighed about a pound, which is just ridiculous. Most of the time, like her current prosthesis weighed 3.5 pounds. So we just crushed that. And so that's the multi-jet fusion. I've really only done the prosthetic side of things in multi-jet fusion just because I met Zach and it worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started to kind of understand some of the properties of the material and what I can do with it. But I have connected with Terry Hill from Rapid, and he's in Oklahoma City. Rapid, I don't remember the last part of that, but he has some SLS machines where he can do nylon 12 and nylon 11.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually provided some fixturing and tooling for us to take to Guatemala, and heavy duty stuff. And this was the first time that I used SLS, and they were beautiful, beautiful pieces and parts. And so I'm definitely willing to try it for sure.
Yeah, I kind of got away from doing FDM for some of my product designs. As you know, if you bought any, I swear by SLS, and I've used Shapeways. I again have one of those informal handshakes. They obviously never meet your timeliness, especially during the holidays. But yeah, SLS just has a certain quality that's really hard to get. Now, I have heard good things about the HP multi-jet, but I personally have not tried it. You have seen the difference between the two. Which would you recommend?
Well, so I haven't done a prosthesis with the SLS. I know that the multi-jet fusion, I believe, allows, and I may be misspeaking on this, but as far as tolerances, when I'm designing some of this stuff, I'm able to go thinner than what I would probably do for SLS.
That's probably, yeah. So let's say, I can't remember, 0.1's about the minimal that you can do with SLS. So what, 0.05 millimeter?
So when I was doing for the T-nuts and such, I was doing 0.07, and I was probably a little bit big there. So I think 0.5 would be 0.05 would be fine for that. So it's pretty wild.
And Shapeways, and we also have out on the West Coast here, is it Sculptress? I think it's Sculptress. They, or Sculptio, one of the two. They can provide services, and they both have the HP multi-jets. So I may try that. They're actually about twice the price, though, believe it or not.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yeah, they're more expensive. So I've kind of shunned away from it, but I've heard that they have pretty good structural integrity. Obviously, if you've got people putting multiple pounds of stress on them through running and so forth, they must be handling that, which has always been an issue with standard FDM, even from the big boys who use the FDM process. If you don't print it right with the grain, obviously, as you're fully familiar, you can always have lots of problems. And sometimes the designs don't permit you from using it at the high strength. So that's kind of the reason I've gone to SLS as well. Well, enough about the 3D fabricating. Hopefully, since we're on a YouTube channel now, you've got some show and tell to show along with your telling. So can you kind of give us an idea of an orthotic or a prosthesis and what it takes to make one? Not that I would want to try that or anything.
Yeah, no, for all this, I'm definitely an open book. And on this, I try to help as many people as I can, try to push this technology forward. I would say that, the biggest thing with this is we as prosthetists, we are, and it's not we're trained to do one-off prototypes for every single patient, and we have to take into consideration underlying anatomy, muscle structure, and all that. So it's while it may look easy to do, and you may hit it 1 or 2 times, you can't. If you don't have the training, you can't you can't do it. But most of the time, prosthetists are super willing to be involved in pushing some of this technology forward. And if they have somebody, an engineering, biomechanical engineer, whoever that has an interest in this, more than likely they would just with open arms say, yes, come in, let's work together. And that's probably the biggest thing that I would like to convey, is that a partnership between somebody that does, the engineering side for a living, and then somebody that does the taking care of patients and the skeletal design side. I mean, it really is a great marriage to come out with a great product, great patient solution. So, but with that being said, we first start by taking a scan of either.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention that. So good segue there. So obviously, the best way, I guess in the past, you use calipers and other forms to make measurements, but now we have 3D scanners. And you reminded my aging mind that you actually purchased some things for your structure sensor, but I'm assuming that you probably work with other 3D scanners as well. Having worked with the structure sensor, both as a developer and a user, they leave a little bit to be desired, especially if you want some tight tolerances, which is hence the reason for 4 eyes. But I'm assuming you use other 3D scanners as well?
Yeah. So in a couple points on the 3D scanning before we get too far into that is the 3D scanning does a great job of capturing shape, but it doesn't necessarily do a great job of capturing shape under load or what the underlying tissue structure is. So I still am a firm believer in taking a good mold, but we have developed some techniques to either scan the inside or the outside of the molds and then reduce either the thickness, or scanning the inside of the molds have actually worked out pretty well for us. And what the mold gives you is the underlying anatomy and the actual volume of the patient's limb under tension. And that's important. So any other time that you take a direct scan of a patient, you are doing a guess of where that underlying anatomy is and what their volume is under load. And so, I obviously I've got some opinions about that, but I still think that I would rather not guess. But I want to use, I call these my digitizers, right? So I'd rather have these on the patient, feeling the underlying anatomy, and then scanning that result. And then I'm in the ballpark. I don't have to do a whole lot. So as far as scanners go, I still use the structure scanner, but we developed an app called DigiScan 3D. Our nonprofit did, and it is, to my knowledge, still the only app that was scratch built for the structure sensor written in Swift. And it's also the only app, as far as I know as well. And one of the reasons for this, when we're in the jungle of Guatemala, we don't have internet. So we had to figure out a way to get those scans off the iPad because we didn't have email. And so we actually added an airdrop feature, and then the scans stay resident on the iPad as well. So we're able to recall them. We're also able to scale them. So that app actually exports as an STL file in the appropriate scale. So what you've scanned, you don't have to scrub it through anything else to get the actual size. So super happy with the app. And people actually are using it in their clinical practice here in the US. And then we've got other nonprofits using it as well. It's a paid app. People think it's crazy. I think it's, it's $25 a month, which is
so it's a subscription-based app.
It's a subscription-based. It's expensive in the app world, but I would say that I never wanted to get into the software business, and so there is definitely a barrier to entry for people that are looking for free stuff and don't know how to use it, or aren't willing to put in the time. And so at that price point, what we're finding is that people wanting to use it, wanting to make it work, and it's worked out well for now.
Good.
So that's the structure sensor. I also have a fast scan Scorpion scanner, which is from Polhemus. It's the dual camera laser scanner. That is what I use for making cranial helmets for kiddos, because it has the tracker on it, so the kiddos can sit on their parents' laps and they can move around and everything, and it doesn't matter to that scanner. It tracks it fine, and you get a good result. But
Good.
as you know, that's it's not necessarily, it's old technology, but it's great technology. But it's a bulky system. There's no doubt about it. The other scanner that I use is an Arttech Eva, and the Eva is a great scanner. The software is even better. I mean, what they're doing as far as the algorithms and all that back end stuff is just incredible. And the reason why I was attracted to that is I'm able to take those scans, or the casts, and if it's got a funny shape and I can't shoot the scanner all the way down in there to get the whole thing, I can actually split the cast in half, scan both sides, and in the software put it together. And theirs is the most intuitive way that I've seen. It's still a lot of work, but it gives great results. So those are the main scanners that I use, or I guess that's the only scanners that I use in my practice.
And the Ava, I think, is what, $20,000?
Yeah. So
the reason I'm bringing that up is later on in the show, I'm going to be bringing up a similar type scanner that's coming from Russia.
Is that the
5,000?
Is that the Thunk 3D?
Let's see. Where's it at in here?
So there's one.
Calibri.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. Okay.
Yeah. So you'll have to hang on to the show then.
I will. No, so I bought my the Arttech Eva for a lot less than that. I don't know if I'm able to say it because of my connections, but
please don't.
So
I know that they're kind of uptight if you give pricing.
So the reason why I got the deal that I did, though, is because the Leo just came out. And so there's going to be a flood of Evas on the market very soon. And I believe that you'll be able to pick them up for a reasonable price, probably half off or more, because the Leo is out. And even though I believe that the Eva and the Leo is definitely going to be better, but as far as for people like me and most other people, the Eva is actually great, but there's wires. So you just have to put up with the wires.
Yeah, it's funny because I had gone to a couple of shows and I was showing off the structure sensor. And as you know, I also created some custom software. And I had basically, I don't know which devices you bought, but I essentially made cases and so forth. So here I am with just this little handheld thing, scanning people, and the guy that had the Arttech scanner was holding a laptop and the scanner and walking around. He said, I want one of those, then I wouldn't have to haul this around. But if you're in an office, obviously, as long as you've got a long enough umbilical cord, that's not a problem. But having the new Leo, and then I guess you're familiar with Einscan, they've also come out with a portable unit. And having worked with as you said, the structure sensor is great because it's compact, but you can't really beat the Arttechs for the software and the quality of scans if you're willing to take the time in it. And I keep telling myself one day I'll get one. Or I keep trying to convince the guys over at Occipital, here, you need to come out and work with me on the algorithm. As you're aware, with the 4 eyes, it had some distortion, and we were trying to build it in without it, actually it being optimized. But if you've worked with the 4 eyes, you've only got a sweet spot to work with, and it's really only good for detail on topical. But that's not what we're here for. So did you have anything to show us? Did you have some of your orthotics, or did you so maybe got the note too late on?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got some are you able to pick up some of the LinkedIn stuff?
What do you mean by LinkedIn? Oh, I could go out to LinkedIn if you want. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, so I wish I could have had that prosthesis, but it's on that patient.
Yeah, I think we need to leave it there. All right, so give me a moment.
Yeah. So yeah, so we were talking about MDF and or FDM and multi-jet fusion and SLS things, and the FDM really, the materials are coming a long way. I'm definitely having less failures, but I'm still only focusing on the upper extremity for those. So there's some great pictures of some of the arms and such that I have done there. That was, oh, this picture here is.
So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my screen, and then
Okay.
You can just talk over it.
Yeah.
So
this picture here, it's amazing what people do to get walking. So they've wrapped some sort of foam around a piece of wood, and then this nail is what they walked on. Or not, they didn't walk on the nail, but that's what kept their prosthesis together. It's just crazy. These in Guatemala, they're just so ingenious about keeping that everything together. So that was an interesting prosthesis. Yeah, don't go on that one. Let's see. Keep on trucking.
How about this one?
Yeah, so this is my friend Frank Hodges from Sunstone Lab. This is a we call it a knee ankle foot orthosis. That strut, so you see the metal bars, and then you go down a little bit, and there's a kind of a real thin strut. That is made by a company called FabTech, and it's a carbon fiber strut. So it allows people that have had strokes and other types of injuries to have some dynamic motion to their device. So we're almost bringing like those sprinters in the Paralympics. It's that same sort of technology, the spring technology to them, that allows for more walking, we say, symmetry and such. So just a great design by Frank there. So the on these poles there, that's where you see some of those SLS parts. And so they're holding the that jig, and you can see that's a lot of leverage through those parts. And we did I think 35 devices, and they were fine. We actually left them there for the next clinic, so they look really good there. Yep. So what this system does essentially is it allows us to see how the patient's limb lines up with the knee and the foot. And then we use a special adhesive that cures in about 60 seconds to attach everything together. And then we thermoform over top of that to make the whole prosthesis. So that's actually one of the things that LifeNabled and Frank have really, we have a lot of pride in this, because we're just able to really make a prosthesis very quickly. So just an interesting story about that. We had a plastic failure, and the patient was waiting on us, and so we actually had to do a prosthesis from start to finish while they were there. Wow. And it took us about 50 minutes. So I don't care what kind of 3D printer you have, that ain't happening in 50 minutes. So there's definitely benefits to traditional fabrication, or quote unquote traditional fabrication.
Well, and that's so true. I mean, sometimes just getting things done quickly, you do something a little more unique, or you go back to traditional methods. And so I noticed you mentioned you used vacuum forming as well.
Yeah, so vacuum forming, I mean, it's been around forever in our field. We use a copolymer plastic, and we use medical suction pumps, and they will, this socket here is neat. So, but with the vacuum forming, literally you heat sheet plastic up in the oven, you take it over to your plaster mold, you let the plastic kind of fall around the mold, you create a seam, almost like those food saver commercials where you pinch everything off, and then the plastic just vacuums down to the mold, and then you let the plastic get to its temperature, set temperature, and then you're able to take it off. So it's a really inexpensive, very efficient, very strong way to make a prosthesis.
Oh, yeah, I had not heard of that, but obviously it makes a lot of sense. And what's interesting is that there's been a couple of manufacturers who've made, would you call them consumer, prosumer, vacuum mold type devices now that you can buy for less than $2,000 to $3,000. So obviously yours are probably a little bit more than that, but
well, you know, those so if you're going to scroll up just a little bit, I think
sure.
right there. So this, and you can click on one of those pictures. So this was, so let's just finish the vacuum forming thing. So the vacuum forming, those gas medical pumps, you can buy new for like $900, and we daisy chain 2 of them together. So what are you at, 1,600? And literally, you know, you take a hose from that into a pipe that you can build for probably $30 from Home Depot, and you've got yourself a wicked vacuum forming station. It's
wow.
It's really, it's top notch. A lot of flow, very strong. So
Well, I'll have to
that's
get
how
in
we do it.
contact with you next time I have a project that needs something like that.
There you go. So this prosthesis is really where multi-jet fusion shines. So this young lady, her limb is shaped kind of like a pear. So, you know, the rest of that tube is not shaped like that. It's skinnier above there. So you have to create a way for her to get down into the socket by allowing flexibility of the socket. So I don't know if you can see, there's kind of a mesh in the back of that prosthesis. And so that allows,
I can see something right
there
here.
you go. Yeah. So it's a texture that I applied there. And so some of that is only a 0.5 millimeter thick through there. So it allows for some flexibility there. And then you can see just from the light, you can see kind of these ridges or reinforcements that are running down around the socket that go into the bottom of the socket.
Right
And
here.
yeah. So, and then if you go at the top, do you see kind of that ridge?
I see it right here.
Nope, down a little bit. See, there's to the left, and then go up right under the ace, and then go straight down the C. Yep, and go straight down to the left. There you go. That piece right there. So those are reinforcements. They are 4 millimeters thick at that point, and the rest of the edges are 1.75 millimeters thick. So very flexible, but yet very rigid through those ridges. And then those ridges connect to the end, which is where most of the force of the prosthesis goes through. And then at the very bottom, before you get to the foot, is where I put the T-nuts, and that's what connects the foot. And this foot is actually a very unique foot made by Phil Auer called the All Pro, and it is what allowed her to run. So it's essentially a running foot, like what you see the guys in the Paralympics run, but it's got a heel on it so you can walk with it. And so, and what I love about this young lady, she's 16, is she had legs that kind of looked like legs before. We shaped them up, and she's like, I'm done with that. I want people to know I'm wearing a prosthesis and I am one bad lady. And so she decided to go this. And I mean, I think it's beautiful. I think it fits her personality. It's great. And she just loved it.
Great. Let's see, I think we got a couple more images there.
Yeah. And then I have a video of her actually trying it. It's about a minute long, somewhere probably around this spot.
Yeah, let's see if I can find it real quick. And then while we're talking about this, as you know, VR and augmented reality and all that stuff is, I guess, the new buzzwords. Have you found an application for any of that in your work?
Yeah, I would say I love the idea of vocational rehab. And so that's Zach Holcomb with Aerosport Modeling and Design. He's the one that does my multi-jet fusion stuff.
Okay.
So one of the things that I use for my modifying software, I use Geomagic Freeform Plus with their haptic device. And I love the feeling to be able to feel the model right underneath my hand. And with that haptic device, it's incredible. I can feel all the curves. I can feel the different kind of undulations of the cast. I can feel where there's a bump that may need to be removed. And then I can also add and subtract items as well. And I can feel all that right underneath my hand. Have you used one or seen one? The haptic devices?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So, and I use the touch version, not the touch X. So I don't have unlimited funds.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's the company who makes that? Do you remember?
3D Systems.
Makes the touch.
Yep. So they do Geomagic, Freeform, and the touch. Yep, there it is. Yeah, so that's what the device looks like. And so you can actually feel your mold underneath. So that is a form of, I guess, some AI with the haptic feedback and that sort of thing. Now, as far as kind of tying in with your HoloLens and that sort of thing, we definitely see some opportunity in that space to train other prosthetists, or if you've trained them, if they find they have a patient that's very difficult, you can actually get right into their eyes. We can actually set up how things should be aligned, and they can actually, I mean, I'm kind of pipe dreaming now, but I'm guessing that you can help them align things the way it needs to be aligned so they can kind of line some things up on the patient. We definitely see some capability in the training aspect. And, we've really got to leverage as much of this technology as we can to reach, it's up to about 30 million people worldwide that do not have access to prostheses. And so the more that we can get technology involved and leverage some of the experience that we have over here for other people and training, the better off we're going to be.
That's good to hear. So have you signed up for one of the new HoloLens 2s?
I have not, but I do have some potential connections with making some of that work. So and then if you've got any suggestions, I'm open to that too. But that is definitely on the list to at least try to start figuring out for this year of where to go next.
I'll send you a couple links to some people I know at Microsoft. Maybe they can help you out.
That'd be great.
Clearly, they don't need a lot of help. They gave out a lot of them, of the original HoloLens, a couple of years ago to universities and medical places. I never got one, but so now I don't think they're going to be as freewheeling with providing them. But hats off for them. I think it's a fairly cool device. In fact, I'm going to touch on a little bit later in the news. It was something that I get up early. It actually was, what time now? I'm trying to remember. I think it was, I can't even remember now. Yeah, it was on a Sunday, I think like 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that, because it was in Barcelona to actually listen to it. But yeah, very interested. Was hoping it would be a little bit cheaper than $3,500, but oh well, I guess all that stuff costs a lot of money.
That's right.
Okay, so one more item.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've touched on where you're thinking some of the stuff will go. What do you hope will happen? I mean, clearly your objective is to be able to create this rapidly at a cost that other nations can afford, those that can't. And clearly being a nonprofit, anything that you can do to make your costs lower is important. So what else would you like to see?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I see is, for instance, in Guatemala, the idea of nonprofits working together for a common goal. I mean, there's definitely a lot of money that gets sent out, and there's everything's very individualized as far as these groups. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to come together as other nonprofit organizations and really create something special. And so when I think about prostheses and what 3D printing and such can bring to making prostheses is that your end device becomes a very consistent device, and you take some of the human element of fabrication out of it. So what I would love to see is, for instance, and I don't know if it's possible in Guatemala or somewhere in Central America, is you place one multi-jet fusion, SLS printer, whatever it is, in a centrally located place. You leverage the scanning technology and modification technology, and you really train people to evaluate a patient and also fit the device. And you take the fabrication side kind of completely off their plate. So I truly believe that we can train people to evaluate and make good decisions there. And then on the fitting side, we can teach them how to fit. And if they have trouble, we can also Skype in, FaceTime in, whatever it is, and help with the fitting. And so what I'd love to see is a kind of a centralized fabrication place that has all the pieces and parts and everything. And so when a person goes out, say into the jungle of Guatemala, they can be with their scanner. When they get internet, they can email that file in. It can be modified, assembled, and then the next thing they do is they go fit the device. And that way you know that there's a lot of quality control there, the way that it's durable. So might be a pipe dream, but that's what I'm shooting for.
Well, obviously, looking at your website here, if anybody out there is interested in donating to LifeNabled, please do so. In fact, I will have to figure a way to do so myself. You know, something that comes up, and, you know, I obviously follow politics, but, you know, we have a border issue, and depending on what side of the political spectrum you're on, you could either be positive or negative, depending on how you want to view it. But if we did more to actually help and donate and provide services to these countries, maybe that would help alleviate some of them moving forward, moving north in order to come to this country. And I know that's been mentioned before, and clearly you've taken that interest in your skills to help them while you're in Guatemala. And I think if we do a little bit more of that, and I think that can really help. Don't know your opinion on that, Brett, but
Well, and
I think this is a good direction.
yeah. So, and one of the things that I see with providing just a simple thing like prosthesis, or let's just say healthcare in general, is that, I mean, that's one of the a big reason why people would come this way. And what we see is that with a prosthesis, as basic as it sounds, for $150, a below-the-knee prosthesis, you know, if this goes to a child, now they go to school, now they can get an education. In the future, they work and they stay home. You know, those are some of the things that we see that is the power of a prosthesis. And really, for the amount of money that a prosthesis is, and what it means to a person that then becomes educated, goes on to work, whereas without it, more than likely they would not, or they would beg in some form, just because there's just not a place in a lot of societies for people that are missing limbs or having some sort of disability. So I definitely think that you're right on the money as far as, you know, in the medical realm, in this realm, helping allows people to become part of their community, and they'll end up staying put.
Well said, Brett. Well, I appreciate your time. You're welcome to stay on. I'm going to cover a few things in the news and then get on to my tech closet, which literally I am in, is a tech closet now. It's a large closet in the back of my main office, but it suits my purposes for my show here. So if you don't mind, I'll continue on. You're welcome to drop out. If not, just hang on. And if you've got any feedback on anything I'm talking about, you're welcome to chime in. But again, if you drop out, no problem. I won't take it personal. I'll cry just a single tear or two.
No, I'm going to stay tight. I want to hear this. So
okay.
But I'll just mute my mic and we'll go from there.
Great. So let's move on to the first item here. Road to VR, which I have on a number of times. Let's see if I'm hearing my own echo. So, you know, I've had actually, let's see who this is, Scott Hayden, one of their writers. He actually gets an opportunity to try it out. Great article if you want to read it. I've read several of them, as mentioned to Brent. I actually got up early on Sunday. Actually, I'm not normally that early, but sitting down and watching the HoloLens event, I was really excited about it until the price, $3,500 to me is still expensive. I was hoping for something around $1,000, but there are other mixed reality headsets coming out in the near future, which I think will be around that sweet spot. As you know, I've talked about the Dream Glass, which you can, well, I got for about 300, $400 for the developer's kit. I think it's up to 600 now. They're going to have a new version out with positional tracking. And then there's another one, I think Engine, I can't even remember the name now, that actually is almost like a pair of glasses that will also have positional tracking. I have a feeling that will be around $1,000 with its little pocket module, kind of like the Magic Leap. So these, I think, as mentioned, more for the enterprise. Cool things about this unit, wider field of view. A lot of people complained about the earlier version, having used a HoloLens and actually developed a little bit for it. It's kind of a cool product, but yes, the field of view was very limited. The Dream Glass is much better, but you need a computer or other type of mobile device to work with it. As you know, with the HoloLens, it's all built in, which is, I think, a positive or advantage over the other product. The other thing is that they set this up to be more balanced. They've got a large module in the back, which I think is their main CPU board. Their sensors, which are in front here. And it's interesting, they have a couple of extra cameras here, and I have a feeling that provides them a little more field of view for motion traction, or tracking, there we go. Motion tracking for hands. In fact, if you saw the demos, it's good enough to actually see fingers and full hand movements, which is really cool. I think that is more towards their new latest Connect technology, which they're also selling separately. Brent, you might want to look at it. It's like $399. You still need a Windows machine to work with it, but I've heard that the quality is about twice that of a structure sensor. Just saying. So you might want to take a look at it. Like I said, $399. You can pre-order it. I've got one on order for that same reason. And then here they show a little video of the hand tracking. I thought it was very impressive. So he gives some feedback on it. He says brightness. And one of the things I like about Road to VR is that you've got some people who have got some experience and actually really know how to talk about the features that people were wanting to see, better or worse. And brightness, clearly anything that projects into your eyes is always going to be overwhelmed by bright light. No way around getting around that unless you have some type of occlusion method, which they're not doing yet. And so clearly when you design for it, I've found that you want to use bright objects in order to impede the light that's coming from the outside. So as mentioned, the FOV, someone has already identified it is not 100% wider. It's only like 67%. So some people think it's a big scandal. I don't. But Microsoft's always known for their over-the-top marketing anyways. The design I really like. You know what, Brett, I've been on your face the whole time. I forgot to switch my cameras up on. So here we go. You can go back and look at the articles yourself. Brett's been able to see the article. See, that's a problem when you have one more variable. You forget that it's involved. But so I apologize for those of you watching this. You can at least hear it. You can go out and see the article yourself. There's a page 2. And so, like I said, this is one of the better ones. The other cool thing that they showed off is the ability to flip it up. And having several VR as well as my own mixed reality headsets, yeah, that's always a pain because you have to put it way up on your forehead, which could be a problem. Having it flip up like that's cool. They tried to do that with the Microsoft mixed reality VR headsets, but I didn't find that to work very well because one, the front part was too heavy and I still felt my head, my neck was being pushed back in order to keep it up. So this seems lighter, so I think that's a really nice idea. And yeah, I actually sent out a little email. I think it was on Twitter. The guy that runs that Kip, I think is his name. He had a whole bunch of these new HoloLens 2 lined up somewhere in his closet, as he said. And I sent an image of my closet. I've got everything in my closet except one of these. And he said, well, are you going to get one? And so I said, are you going to give me one for free? I didn't say that, but I said, I've already signed up, but got no response, because I think everybody and their uncle is out signing up for it. So I'll probably get one like in 2021 or something. Who knows? So hopefully I'll be able to play with one sooner than that. I'm not that far from Seattle. Maybe I'll just drive up to Redmond. Who knows? Okay, and then if you wanted to actually sign up, here's your pre-order page. Now, one of the things I complained about originally is if you sign up for it, it doesn't really identify what you're signing up for. You can sign up and buy one for $3,500. Let's see if it still says it. Or you can spend $325. Yeah, see, all you can do is just sign up and they'll contact you. No one's contact. I guess I'm not important enough. But yeah, you can, for $125 a month, that I think somewhere else I read or someone tweeted back to me, that's for like a year, 2 years, but you get a unit with it. But clearly, if you look at the, they're literally financing this, so they're making a little money off of it. So if you're just interested in the unit itself, spend the $3,500, use your own financing if you have to. Otherwise, if you want the services that it provides, go ahead and sign up for it. In any case, I don't think anybody is going to get one of these until later on in the summertime, unless you're really, really important. So don't write to me and say, I got one, because then I would say you're really, really important, and then you're a snob and I don't want to talk to you anymore. No, just kidding. So yeah, it looks, a lot of people says, oh, it still looks geeky, but oh well. If you wear glasses, remember those days you were a geek, now they're a trend setting. So you'll see, one day we'll be wearing these. It's the same thing when people complain about VR headsets, wearing them. I'd like to see you scuba dive without a mask or wearing something in your mouth. Makes it hard to stay underwater for a long time. So, I mean, you have to have certain inconveniences when you're using this stuff. Or if you've done any welding, try and do that without any face protection. So there are certain things, you just get used to them. And if they can help benefit things, like Brent was saying, you could see how this could be used by a student while you guide them. Don't even have to be in the same room, Brent. You could be across the world and guide them. So that's obviously what they're doing here. So I'm really looking forward to it. We'll see. Okay, so that's about it. $125 a month. I don't know how many years. I think it was 2 to 3 years. Or you can buy it outright for $3,500. All right, let's move on to the next item. I thought this was kind of nice from 3D printing industry, and there's a couple of other companies. Actually, 3D fabricating. I remember in 2015 at CES, or can't remember, I think it was CES, they actually had a sample of this where you literally 3D fabricate the entire thing onto a platform, as they're showing here, and you have your full sensor. And these are multi-programmable sensors, so you can use them for a number of things. And I thought that was a really nice idea. And obviously, and they're talking about the nanoscale electronics here. You can watch the video. Since I'm low on time now, I'll just kind of move through it. But it's clearly a unique way of developing things. And as Brent had mentioned, you build these one-off things, and sometimes you can do it a lot cheaper than having to go through and manufacturing on a large scale. And sometimes a smaller scale can be more beneficial, especially if you have something that's multi-purpose, and then just changing some arrangements of it, you can do something a little different. So NASA has invested in this, $2 million. We'll see where that goes. All right, on to 3Ders.org. I thought this was really fun, and I actually have a little video for this, so I'm going to play it. It's kind of fun. So here we go.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me this evening. I'm Jay Rogers. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Local Motors, and I'm sitting in an Olli. Olli is the first self-driving cognitive vehicle, and it is super exciting to have the training wheels off on this amazing technology. Today, we launched Olli in National Harbor, Maryland, on a beautiful day with 250 attendees. And this is a huge day in automotive history. Not only is it the day where Ford Motor Company was incorporated, June 16th, 1903, but also it's the day where we got people comfortable with the idea of riding around in a completely self-driving vehicle. His name is Olli. Why don't I have him introduce himself? Olli, why don't you say hello?
Hi, everyone. My name is Olli. I'm a self-driving vehicle powered by IBM Watson technology. I can help people get around National Harbor.
Thanks, Olli.
Thank you, Jay. By the way, I like your bow tie.
That's great. Olli, I'm hungry. Where can I get some food?
National Harbor has some great seafood. Would you like that?
That sounds great. What's good?
Well then, try the Crab Cake Cafe.
All right, I'll go there for dinner.
Okay, but don't forget your umbrella. There is a severe thunderstorm warning tonight.
All right, I will. Thanks. So what you just saw was me conversing with Olli, which makes my life better as somebody using transportation here in National Harbor. And that natural language and structuring of otherwise unstructured data was super real. There is a real thunderstorm this evening, and Olli was letting me know. And I'm riding and interested in where I want to go to dinner. And if you can think about that as just a little nugget of what it means that I don't have to take my phone out of my pocket in order to be able to try to structure data out of a lot of different inputs that are there, but rather using the power of Watson IoT in order to be able to take a lot of the inputs that are out and around me that I wouldn't even be thinking about and make my ride in an Olli even better. That's the power of getting things done quickly. And really what's meaningful to us is that we started on this project 3 months ago. And 3 months ago doesn't mean we made a prototype. We sold our first 10 Ollis today. And so the ability for us to be able to go from an idea with a community designed vehicle and put it to rights and make it in a 3-month period of time and then sell vehicles and move in sparks up our microfactories and makes it possible for us to make this great technology come to life. It's been an amazing day. So these vehicles, these Ollis, are going to be on National Harbor streets. And all summer long, we're testing and improving and engaging different data that we're pulling out of the vehicles. The sensor set on this vehicle allows us to be able to feed data to Watson and feed data back to Olli to make life more enjoyable. The goal to have 30 vehicles on these streets by Christmas to be able to connect all of the sights and the sounds that are going around from living to entertainment to exercise and to work is really what will make National Harbor's transportation ecosystem come alive and make it more enjoyable to get around on a daily basis. Making and selling and servicing and operating vehicles locally is what Local Motors, in its name, is good at. That's what we do. And so Olli not only will start at National Harbor, but this is a nexus for us to be able to deliver the next sets of Ollis and their self-driving system all over the world. By the end of the year, you'll see Olli in Copenhagen, and you'll see him in Las Vegas. You'll see him in Miami-Dade County and several other places around the world. So that means that you're seeing this technology deployed not only for the people of Washington, D.C., but really for more feedback and more engagement across the world. Undoubtedly, the biggest challenge that we've had comes as a result of the speed at which we move. The ability for us to be able to get a product conceived, designed, branded, and out into the market in order to be able to take orders and then produce is something which is incredible because it fits at the clock speed that technology is finding its way into the market and the clock speed where consumers are changing their preferences. But what it means is that perception of what's possible has to come along faster. Too often we hear people walk down the street and say, wouldn't it be nice if, but they don't imagine that it's even possible. And yet that innovation is right around the corner. So today, perception needs to change. And we're super happy to have that opportunity to make that the greatest challenge that we have, since we've already figured out that moving fast is possible. So we're all about it. And thank you for having the time and taking the time to join us tonight on this great day in history and this great day today for us in National Harbor. It's been a pleasure to share this time with you.
Pretty cool. So the fact is that we've covered them before. They actually 3D manufacture a lot of their prototyping. I don't know if exactly if there's a lot of glass there. I don't think they fabricated their own glass, but the fact is they're able to put this together fairly quickly, and obviously is identified autonomous and then voice feedback and some AI, as he talked about in the beginning there. I think it's pretty cool. I want one of these. I think I want one for myself, drive it around. Now, I guess you don't drive it. That would be kind of fun. Oh, well. See anything like that? You got any Google cars out there, Brent?
I do not, but that's the first time I've seen the Olli. I guess I've been hiding under a rock or something. That's really neat.
I know, it's pretty neat. It's pretty cool. Well, they've done a few other vehicles, and their forte is literally using the HP printers that we talked about, SLS, FDM, to create a lot of the prototyping, but then also to create one-offs, and obviously small manufacturing of these to keep their costs down. Again, as we talked about, a lot of people don't realize a lot of things that we get from manufacturers, it's only because we're seeing thousands of them, tens of thousands, 50,000, millions of them, which is what keeps the cost down. But when you create a small group of these, a lot of things don't even get off the ground. And obviously, as we talked with Brett earlier, many of the unique designs that he's worked with wouldn't have gotten off the ground if he had to go to a manufacturer with them. So that's really the strength of 3D fabrication and rapid prototyping as we see it now. But the fact is they've combined all this. It just looks cute. I don't know, I want one. Oh well, let's move on to the next item. Brent, just for you, Calibri 3D scanner from Russia. It's interesting they have a Euro price for it. Essentially, as you can see, it's very similar to the Artex. In fact, very similar to the Ava, but a little bit less in price, 4,099 euros. I don't remember what that comes out to, about 5,500, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what the euro is right now. But it has a lot of the same features, also a built-in touchscreen on the back. So it is probably more to compete with the Leo device, obviously for a lot less. So I have a video for this too that'll give us a little bit more information if I can find it. Here we go. And let's play it. All right, well, let's look at the specs now. Turn back my feedback. So accuracy, 0.1 millimeters, not too bad. Accuracy over distance. Now you work with the Artec, Brent, so where does this compare with it? I think it's pretty close. The fact is that it's a white LED light source, obviously works off similar technology as the Einscan as well as the Artex. Frame rate 25 to 30, that's pretty good. 3 million points, data acquisition speed, that's not bad at all. And then it says multi-core processing. I don't know if that's the built-in processor in the handset. I'm assuming it might be. And then weight 700 grams, that's not too bad. And so not bad. Now, I don't know anything about the software, as you said, Brett. Having decent 3D software that allows you to make modifications, clean it up, and so forth is very important in scanning. I tried my hand at it. I actually have a, what is it? I've already forgotten the name of it. A bed scanner that's really nice, except converting scans into actual solid models, like in 360 Fusion, which I think, or Fusion 360, which you said you use, or any of the other SolidWorks or some of those, is a really tedious process. And you really don't make any money at it unless somebody's willing to spend a lot of money using your services. And needless to say, there wasn't a lot of people that want to spend a lot of money. So software is very important, and I do know that the Artec has some pretty good software for doing that.
I think it looks like a really neat scanner, and you notice no wires. So that's definitely a plus, and that frame rate. I mean, because with my Eva, I'm only getting 16 is tops. So at 25-30, maybe I could capture that kiddo moving their head around all around.
Well, good luck on that. But still, the whole point is, even with adults, it's sometimes difficult to keep them still. I found when I was scanning kids for some little fair that I was at, I made it into a contest, and man, they were doing a lot better than the adults. I can't remember, but some of them wanted to make weird faces too, but it was all in fun. They all loved to have their faces scanned. It was kind of cool. But yeah, I think it's really nice. And the price, again, like I said, it seems to be a major competitor to the Einscan. So I'm wondering, because my thoughts were the Artec uses a similar white LED scanner. Actually, it's now white LED. In the beginning, it was, I think, a xenon lamp, but also using the stereo cameras for parallax depth information. So this is, I don't know, seems to be encroaching upon some patents. So I'm really wondering how they're getting around that. And again, the Einscan works the same way, which is a Chinese company. And so this one from a Russian company. So maybe there's some reason why it's, oh well. Regardless, good price. I'm really hoping Artec will come up with something lower price, but that has not been the case. And there's a couple of other really nice scanners, but way out of my price range. All right, let's move on to our VAMR corner, and just one item, and it's kind of, and I got a little fun video to talk about it for me, so I don't have to do a lot of talking. But if you're familiar with the knuckle controllers that Valve has been working on for the last 2 years, it now looks like they're going to be available soon. I have some interest in it because I've been working on this VR experience for the upcoming 50th anniversary for our own Oregon Space and Industry Museum. That's going to be a VR that you actually walk around like you're on the moon. You'll be actually wearing moon boots, and it'll track your legs. And I've wanted something that's a little bit better. I wanted to look at hand gloves or something like that, but this might be a great option. Why? Because, and they do a good job at identifying here at Road 3 or Road to VR about why, and it has capacitive sensors so it can determine your hand sizes as well as gripping. You can actually grip, and then it can determine your hand gestures. So if you see these little straps here, these straps you tighten up so you can literally let go of the controllers and they still remain on your hands, which then they can sense your gripping, your finger motion, and then you can use the tracking points as well. And I think this would be really great because one of the things with my system that you'll be seeing is that it's going to be extremely realistic, and you'll actually go on and take pictures with the Hasselblad camera, and you'll be able to pick up rocks off the moon. So all of this will be in VR. And if you've ever worked with a museum, just like Brent mentioned with orthotic, it can be very expensive to create mock-ups that are realistic. In fact, some of them aren't really that realistic. In fact, one company was selling a $20,000 kind of like a half LEM module, like one half of a LEM. That, I mean, it was okay and had some switches, but I'll show some pictures at the end here. I think VR is the way to go. That museums should do more with it, and that's my goal, is to have something that can be very interactive for kids and adults, and it'll be available on the 20th of July, but we'll talk about that more. So hopefully I'll have a pair of these to be able to use with it. I don't know exactly when they're going to come out, but this company here has been playing with them, and now I'm really jealous. Again, they're using them for guns. I'm not a big fan of that, but
almost a year later, well, 11 months later, finally ready to show Boneworks again. The Steam page is up. We've been hard at work at it. Everyone's like, oh, did you stop making it? It's like, no, I've been working on it like 7 days a week for the last 11 months. And here it is. You'll be playing on the Knuckles today. Game's also able to be played with touch, Vive ones, everything's out there.
Wait, this is an exclusive sneak peek of this hardware, huh?
These are the Knuckles. Valve has been talking about these for a couple of years. These are new VR controllers they've been working on, and what makes these special, it's worth showing them. What it does, it straps to your hand, and so the way you grab things in it is you grab the controller. And it takes a little bit of getting used to it, because it's like it's not in your mind to ever like let go of your controller, but that's how you grab things. In our game, on top of that, if you want to force grab, you grab and do trigger, and you can like grab stuff at a distance. Something else to be conscious of is there's a force sensor in here. So not only does it track your fingers like this, but it knows how tightly you're squeezing it.
Wow.
So you can use that for like friction and stuff in game. You'll see while you're doing that. Without further ado, let's put somebody in Boneworks.
Brandon, I feel like you're kind of underselling this a little bit, because this is what I would consider to be the forefront of VR gaming.
I haven't seen finger tracking since the Control VR days.
So wait,
Yeah.
what are you doing with your fingers right now?
Moving them. I'm just flicking everybody off, because that's what freedom means in video games,
Can you
guys.
hold up your pinkies? Can you flick us off with just pinkies?
Yeah.
That is crazy.
It's not just me making it. There's like, on any given day, there's 8 to 10 people over there that's working with me that are all talented folks.
Yeah, if you want to meet
And
them,
so-
just watch the Office versus Office Smash Bros video.
They're right over there, literally past this door, but we don't get to play any of the games. We could if we wanted to, but we literally haven't seen any of this.
There's a bunch of little details here that I think people would miss. Like, for example, the way the arms actually match the way my arms move in real life. Like the proper twist here.
Yeah.
Oh. Whoa.
It's Jimmy.
It's Jimmy
Hi, Jimmy.
Wong.
That's so weird. It's Jimmy Wong.
Joystick will allow you to snap turn quickly.
Is that face capture? iPhone
Yeah,
face
that's
capture?
captured with an iPhone. So it's basically
Wow.
captured with an iPhone and using the same tech. Apple graciously spent probably $20 million paying engineers to develop handheld facial capture for us. So all we had to do is the rest of the hard work of implementing it.
Oh, that's so nice.
So the rules of this game, to set up what this is. So basically, I always complain a lot about what the AAA developers have been doing and what they've been making. They kind of make the same thing over and over again. They iterate a little bit, and there's a reason for that, because they're trying to keep the shareholders happy. But they leave it to guys like us to actually innovate. They leave it to guys like us to invent something new, because they want it to be proven before they're going to invest their money in it. So that's okay. We got you, AAAs. So we wanted to show VR a way.
all right, that's enough of that. So you can go in, I've got a link in the show notes to go out and watch the YouTube video. But as you can see, they seem very versatile. Can't wait to get my hands on them. Unsure of what the price will be. I've heard that it'll be about 100 to 150. Seems a little pricey, but I think right now the actual Valve or Steam controllers for the HTC Vive headset are about 100, 150. So not too bad. So hopefully they'll be in soon. I don't know where I get all the money for this, but all these are things that I want, but I figure some way of getting it. On that note, I think that's about everything in our news. So let's head on to the tech closet. So a couple things I want to talk about today, and let's see what I'll do first. I think I'll talk about the Snap 3D first. Let me find it. Oh no, there we go. Okay, this company contacted me. It's a Chinese company, and they've come up with this, I think, this really unique way of viewing without glasses or any eyewear 3D. And before you start saying, oh, sure, doesn't work very well, actually, I was very surprised. If you remember, Amazon created a phone and it supposedly had a 3D feature. And I thought at the time, because I never actually tried one, it was probably going to be some type of lenticular thing that uses eye tracking. And I think there's another company that did something similar to that. But it was fixed-eyed and it didn't really do that well. And plus, the lenticular kind of splits the resolution in half, so you lose the quality of your screen. Plus, you have this prismatic thing on top of your screen. So they came up with, I think, a really cool idea, and that is to create a case. So not only do you have a case that can go above the screen and create this 3D effect, but you can turn it around and use it as a regular standard bumper type case. I don't know how well that would work, since the screen you're viewing would be on the back of it. And if you're like me or anybody who's got a phone, you have a tendency to scratch it with your keys or whatever if you put it in your pocket. So I don't know how well that would work. But I do have one of those cases that are sections that work on your belt, because I'm a geek type character and I'm older, and so I'm allowed to be really stupid and geeky in that respect. But I put my phone with the bumper case into that, and it seemed to work pretty well. And if everything works, I should be able to give a demo of it. It comes with on both iOS devices, mainly later iPhones. In fact, it works on the iPhone 7 Plus that I have, or the 8 Plus, and I think it even works on the 6 Plus, if I remember correctly, as well as the iPhone 10s and the new, what is it, the XR version of the iPhone 10. And you basically have to buy one for each case, because the lenticulars are cut for the resolution of the devices. And the iPhone 6, 7, 8 all use a 1920 by 1080 screen. So that one was fairly easy to adapt, and they're all about the same size. The 10S as well as the XR are different resolution screens, so there's one unique to that. It does have a version for Android, but only for the Samsung Galaxies, and specifically the Galaxy 9s, as well as the, what's the Notes? Is it the Note 9? Oh, well, but I mean, you can go out here and see what it actually works with. They've got two programs. They've got an M player, and then they got an M camera, which uses your single camera. And I don't think it actually offsets the camera images as much as it's doing it in software. It's an okay 3D effect, but if you've got VR content that's stereo already, the results can be pretty stunning. And I actually created a few images, which I'll show you a little bit of my Apollo for. And it really looks nice. It doesn't really jump out of the screen like they're showing here. It's like most 3D, it's recessed into the screen, but it still has a really good 3D quality. And the quality is actually fairly good. Let's see, I'll jump to my camera here. Brent, are you hearing an echo?
I am not.
Good, because I sometimes forget to turn off the mic in my additional camera here, which will be showing here. And in a second, that's over my shoulder. So here it is. It's a little dirty, because that's another problem with screens. If you touch them a lot, they get dirty. So, but it's like a little film. I'll bring it up, and you can't probably see it because our quality is only going to be 720p. So yeah, it does add a little bit of a, if you've ever seen a lenticular lens, it works by essentially creating prisms that slice the image in half. And if you put your image on both sides of it, you can turn your head one way or another and see one image or the other, which is some uses for it, or it can split it off so one eye sees one thing, one sees the other, which creates a stereo effect. And what they're doing with this, and I'll go ahead and bring up and make sure I've got it in the display so you can see it. So I'll bring up the M player. So what it does is it goes through the process. And can you see the screen there, Brent? I'm using it as my feedback system.
Yes.
Okay, so you go through and you line up these slanted lines so that they're parallel with the other slanted lines in the screen. And then you jump to the next one and you basically rotate this so that your eyes see it as one fixed item in space, which is kind of set up. You won't see it on here, but you can see how it's kind of like multiple images there. And what it's doing right now is tracking your eyes themselves. And it basically sees your eyes. And then the final step, once it's finished tracking, is to tell the screen when you close your left eye what you're seeing. And I see the bee. And now it's set up. So I had created these earlier. These are some 3D images I created, and they really look like they're in 3D. So it's kind of a fun little thing. I thought it would be fun if it's about $10. You can get this on Amazon, and they're like $29. So I think they would be more fun if they were like half the price. But at $29, it's still a really fun experience without having to buy VR glasses. But with Google Cardboard costing less than a few dollars, or you can even get one free, 29 is going to be a little harder to justify. The fun fact is it allows you or somebody else, you can just hand the person, because I noticed I could hand it to my wife and she saw the 3D as well. So once it's kind of set up for one person's set of eyes, it normally works with the other, but you should tweak it for the individual. So multiple people really can't watch it in 3D. They are making some screens as well. Let's see if, well, I'll just finish it. So this is one of the scenes I'm working on. This is the inside of my LEM module that I've spent like hours recreating the actual console based upon very few images. There's a new documentary out on Apollo 11 that's coming out this weekend, which I'll see tomorrow, that has never seen footage from the archives of NASA. Highly recommended if you're a space fan, Brent. And but that I did a lot of scouring and found a lot of images to actually build this display. So it's fairly accurate. I'm finishing up a few more knobs on it, but there's a person, what country is out of? I want to say the Netherlands. I can't remember who actually created my spaceman there. Very detailed, almost more detail than the one that they're scanning out at the Smithsonian. In fact, I had interviewed them a couple of years back and said, hey, I've been working on this, and are you planning to make the scan that you finally create available, or at least the view? And they never responded. So hopefully they don't see me as competition, because this is going to be free for anybody who wants it later on. So I thought maybe creating a few of these to hand out while people are waiting in line for the VR experience would be kind of fun. I'm also scanning people's heads, so that creating a bust that'll fit in a pre-fabricated astronaut. So your head will be in the helmet. And then also an AR, a mixed reality of the actual suit, like it was there instead of the Smithsonian. So also be kind of fun. So that's, like I said, 29 is a little bit expensive for it, but it is kind of fun. So if you've got some mad money and want to try it out, it only works with iOS devices or certain Galaxy phones, so you're limited to certain phone. I tried to use it on my Pixel, and for whatever reason, the front or selfie camera was really dark, and it could never view my eyes and just didn't work. So they are geared to particular phones. The other thing that's interesting, are you familiar with Insta360? They make 360 cameras, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to talk about one here in a moment. It's kind of a hands-on that I have with the Insta360 1X, which highly recommended. It's about $350 if you do some shopping. But one of the better, I want to say, non-stereo or single 360 cameras out there. It's a 5.6 meg. But the whole point is they just did an announcement for, is it March 18th, that they're going to come out with a device. In fact, let me jump out to Insta360's website, since I'm going to be talking about their product anyway. They have just taken, and again, another Chinese company has just taken the full 360 market by storm. And I have 3 of them now, and in fact, I had the original Nano, and they really like, because I did the solar eclipse here out in Oregon. I had one mounted, I had it going live while I was doing my show. It was kind of fun, but
wow.
They've got an Instant 361, which is decent, but this new Pro or not Pro, the X is really nice and it's reasonably priced. They also have some really expensive ones. I think the Pro 2 is $6,000. The Pro 1 you can still get, I think it's like $3,500. And then they've got the brand new one. What do they call it? Yeah, the Titan, which actually uses micro four thirds cameras, 11K VR. But it's also got a price to match. I think it's like $12,000. It's really expensive. But if you're into that, I don't think there's really any cameras better. There's a few others out there, but some of them are more expensive. So they've really done a good job. Their software is really good, and which is what I'm going to talk about here in a moment. So onto that, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to my main camera. Where are we, main camera? There we go. And we're going to go ahead and bring it up. Now, I've been working on a project to combine two devices, and I've talked about them a couple of weeks. The bottom unit is the Zoom H3 or H3-VR. It is a AmbiX recording device that allows me to record 360 audio. Underneath my little fuzzy here is 4 elements, so it actually captures X, Y, and Z, both positive and negative, and allows me to add ambience to my VR experiences, and it actually works extremely well. And it's fairly easy to work with. If you ever worked with a Zoom recorder, they're fairly easy to get started with. I do suggest before you go out on any shoots, work with it a little bit, experiment. Don't wait till the last minute. They do a great job of providing a nice little red button here on top to get it started. But if you want to use any of the other controls, it includes a free app, but only sadly for the iPhone, at least at the time that I've used it lately. The top unit on here is specially mounted. I've got a little 3D fabricated mount that I'm adding that I'll be making available. Underneath here, they attach the two. Why they didn't think about it, I don't know, but it creates a very slim line. And if you've done any 360, you want a very slim profile because you want to be able to capture everything. And the route that they had gone is, or at least the bottom camera here, is they attached it with an additional pole, which puts your 360 camera out here. Well, that automatically provides something in the view, at least in the lower hemisphere, which I didn't want. So I just made a full linear adaptation here. And so this is the Insta360 1X, very slim line. I really like that. And they have come to the conclusion, like many, the smaller this, the less, what do you want to call it, distortion you have from these two cameras being apart. Because clearly if you've got a 180 on one side, 180 on the other, and it actually overlaps, I think it's about 230 on each side, there is going to be an actual distance. So the ideal, you would want nothing in between and a full 360 hemisphere, but that will never be the case, or at least not recently. But this is about the thinnest one I've seen. And with that, it works pretty well. Really easy to work with. You basically turn it on. You get a little display here. I found they should have gone with red or something a little brighter. It's like really low white LEDs in there. I was up at Mount Hood on Monday, extremely bright day, and sadly it was really washed out, so I wasn't very happy with that. But like the other product, they all work with your iPhone. So let me jump to that. And if I've got everything set up, it might be to sleep. So I'll put it back in. So give me a moment to figure it out here. This is where you can get up, take a break. If I had commercials, I'd pay for it, but I don't. All right, so let's see if we can mirror to the Apple TV. There we go. So let me bring it up. Yay. Wow, things are working properly today. All right, so behind me is the screen. And sadly, both applications only work in portrait, and there are some problems. So I'll bring up the Zoom first and turn that on. The Zoom is a Bluetooth device, but you have to buy an additional, and you can see it behind me. Come on, reconnect. There we go. There we go. All right, we're connected now. So as you can see behind me, and I should move my camera off to the side, so give me a moment. So as you can see in the screen, I'm talking right now, and I have mic gain level controls, and I can actually go through here and change the level on the screen itself. As you can see, I've got it here, and as well as my mic levels. So if I had a mic plugged into this, I can monitor my levels. And then obviously I get a big button here that I can start recording and then start recording. Now the sad thing is, if I want to go over and activate the there we go, the Insta361, if you're familiar, Brett, did you mention that you actually program?
I do not program, but
Okay.
so, and what I was wondering, so was that is this the same company that had the Theta, or is that a different company?
Insta360?
Yeah.
Did they have a
What
thing?
was
No,
that?
that's who is that? I want to say Philip.
Ryko?
That's not
Ryko.
Ryko. Yeah.
Okay. But
Better
yeah,
camera.
the one that you have?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I love the 360 stuff, and I love editing video. So, but it does present its challenges.
Yep. Well, one of them, you got to have a fairly good machine to use to do it. All right, let's see if we can connect. Hello. There we go. All right, so we're in. So the cool thing about the Insta360 is that it is Wi-Fi. Well, that's funny. So on my screen actually shows, I can show you here, what I'm seeing here, but notice what my actual, what do you want to call it, stream from my Apple TV shows. It still shows the main screen. So clearly what I'm showing on my screen here is an overlay. Yeah, see, it just went away. So that's kind of funny. So we'll have to go back into it in a second. But as you can see here, let's see, will this work better? Yeah, you can see my screen. So you can reposition in here when you're shooting video. And right now I hit the record button a number of times. So I've got a bunch of captured. But if I go to video, it essentially goes to a more compressed mode, and I can still talk and so forth. As you can see, rotate around. You can see my messy closet and the facade behind me that I've now broken the fourth wall. Oh well, but so if you record, it goes into a more compressed mode, but as you can see there, it gets a little more fuzzy, and then it starts recording. But the quality is, again, it's 5.7 or 5.6K, and I think it's 5620, if I remember correctly. So it really works out well for most VR headsets now. So the quality is pretty decent. It is only monocular, so you're not going to get any depth information, but it's really good quality. It has multiple modes for video as well as static images. It does HDR for static images, and also a DNG format, so it does wide gamut, 16-bit, and then also has an HDR, not an HDR, a RAW mode for movie mode as well. So both very interesting. It's about, what's your sample, about 120 megabits sample rate, so it's fairly high. I did notice in the blue sky when I was out Monday, there was some noise in it, but if you're using Premiere, you can use one of the noise filters and mask out the sky. Most items look pretty good. I didn't do any low-level stuff. I did some early. Most of these small sensors are fairly bad when it comes to working in that respect. So let me see. But the thing that I found out, I'm going to go back to this screen, see if I can jump back in. My Apple TV went away. Well, let's jump back to this screen then. Okay, so the thing, I'll put it up here so you can see it. So the thing is, when you jump back to the Zoom, it had disconnected it. So when you go from one app to the other, it's disconnected. Luckily, it didn't stop recording, but it has to reconnect before you can see any of your levels. So keep that in mind, that if you're only using one device, switching between one and the other screen can create some problems if you're using both at the same time. What I did is I put my Insta360 on an Android device and had the Apple device for this, and just had them kind of slapped together so I could work between them. Both of them have fairly good control systems, very easy to operate. I do like the fact that Insta360 uses Wi-Fi, so you have a little bit more range than Bluetooth to get away from the camera. Plus the fact is, if you're using Bluetooth for the recording device or the audio recording, the Zoom device, it kind of makes sense that you have two different devices. You can get a Bluetooth remote for the Insta360, so you don't have to use a camera. Clearly, you won't be able to adjust any of the features. There is no other operating controls other than switching between video and taking snapshots on the actual camera itself. They do make a few cases. They make an action case, and then they also make a what do you want to call it, a scuba diving or underwater case for it as well, which I think is good up to 50 meters, if I remember correctly. Really nice device if you're into 360. Having a higher resolution image device now does allow you to use it for more versatile shooting, where you can just have it up and then come back later on and choose your let's say your 1080p type shot from that full 360. And they have some software to make that a lot easier. So overall, well, I'm a big fan of Insta360. It would be very interesting what they're going to be announcing on March 18th. And still don't have the money for the big pro version of it. I was hoping that they would come out with a camera with dual lenses to do VR 180, but oh well, wishful thinking. There's another company that comes out, Views has a camera like that, but it's also $400, and they say the quality isn't, it's close. It's both, again, another 5.6 camera. The audio, perfect if you're doing 360 immersive audio. It is a great camera for doing that. What I suggest is use that for your ambient audio, and then mic the individual, if you've got talent, as a single mono source, and then you can move that around your sound field. And we've talked about different 360 editing software in the past. So highly recommend both units. Yeah. Oh, well, that's about it. Oh, I guess I wanted to show off a few more images. So as mentioned, I've been working on this, so I'm going to go ahead and show them all. So the goal has been to make this as realistic possible. So one of the things that's a problem with VR is using high resolution textures, especially in land masses and so forth. So I wanted to be able, for the person to be able to look down and see the grain of the lunar soil. I'm going to sprinkle some more rocks in there and actually have a footprint, what do you want to call it, texture that I've got, so that it'll replicate the feet. So if you notice, I recreated the flag, so it's kind of like the one on Apollo 11, including the way it waves. You know, the conspirator, the, what do you want to call it, the Apollo naysayers out there say that that's one of the reasons they never went, because it was flapping in the wind, because they had fans. No, actually it's a spring mechanism that puts this thing together, and because there is no atmosphere, it just kept flapping because of the springs. Oh well. And so there's a seismometer there, and then also there's this reflectometer that they ran lasers off that you'll be able to go over and turn on when you're doing the experience. Notice the earth in the background there, and you'll actually be wearing a suit. And You'll be able to move your hands around and see the suits. And like I said, I'm attaching, remember the moon boots, Brent? I'm going to be attaching the vibe trackers to that. You'll slip them on, so you'll kind of feel like you're trudging around in your moon boots on the soil. And then the final kicker is that you'll jump back into the LEM, push a button, and accelerate up into orbit. So you are not going to descend, you'll actually make the ascent. But I've devoted so much time to this cockpit, I'm going to probably make a standalone system too with a, if you notice here, they've got some controls for throttle, and then on Neil Armstrong's side, actually you can see one over here, he's got a joystick. So I'm actually going to create a version with like maybe the Samsung mixed reality headset with joysticks that you can sit down and actually fly it around. I don't know. But yeah, so I went through so many archive images to make sure I got this right. This was based on another model and they got the whole thing wrong, so I had to basically redo a lot of it. The green displays, which believe it or not, are not green LEDs back in '69. They're electroluminous 7-segment displays, not even Nixie tubes. And then what else is in here? Some of these little CRT displays. It's really cool. So you'll be able to feel at home in your LEM. Some little trivia, this thing had only, like, we were talking about millimeters, it was like 2 millimeters. That's how thick the skin is on the LEM. It was the atmosphere that kept this thing inflated. So it's like a frame system, and the atmosphere is what keeps this thing together, all to basically reduce the weight. And that's what they lived in, like a balloon. Oh well. All right, so there you go. That's about it for this episode. I appreciate Brent coming on and hanging out with us and really talking about some really cool stuff with 3D fabricating. You know, I thought I was in heaven creating orthotics for shoes, but man, this guy really does it all. And you know, I've talked to the people at Enable, and actually there was a French or Spanish designer that one of the shows who created some high quality stuff, again, lower price. But it's good to see people like Brent using their talents and their expertise to create low-cost things for other people in other countries. Okay, well, enough of the LEM for now. I will see you. Let's see, when will I see you? Maybe in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, when I pull my head out of the Unreal Engine and back out to reality. My wife gets so upset with me because she says I'm so obsessed with this. All she sees is the back of my head. But I think Brent kind of understands that a little bit, maybe not.
Oh, my wife thinks it's crazy with all the 3D printers going, and even though they're away from our living area, you can still hear them whining every now and then.
It's not whining, it's singing.
That's a good point. I'll use that next time. Does that work?
Yeah, it's an opera.
Symphony.
No, it didn't work, so nah. She still said, no, it just sounds like noise to me. So sadly, I need to fire mine back up. I haven't fired it up since I've moved to Portland. I've been relying on other services, but maybe I just need to get back into it. Maybe you've motivated me, Brett. Oh, well. For those of you out there, we've kind of run a little bit long, 2 hours, but thanks to Brett with such interesting information, I kind of lost track. So thank you again, Brent. I will see you possibly in another episode. We'll talk about it later. And thank you for watching, and enjoy your weekend. Bye.